I'm going to go there in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to Springfield and I'm going to Aurora. You may never see me again, but that's okay. Got to do what I got to do. Whatever happened to Trump? Well, he never got out of Springfield.
The mystery in that clip to me is, why are they clapping, right? It's unclear what any of that was. I think I know. But the ex-president is undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire for the people who live and work and have to try to survive and raise their families in Springfield, Ohio, by talking about planning a visit that the Republican mayor warns would be a, quote, extreme strain on the city resources. Trump continues to ignore calls from local and state officials in his own party to stop fanning the flames of this baseless, debunked, racist conspiracy theory about people who live there eating the family pets. To that point, his MAGA allies are now descending on Springfield, where, remember this guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, is hosting what he calls an immigration town hall there later today. The city itself is reeling from the recklessness of these lies. Our next guest reports that Clark County Democratic Party volunteers are now facing threats from far-right groups while canvassing for the election. And in response to the bomb threats at the schools in Springfield are telling students to be careful of false information, while state troopers sweep the school buildings twice a day. Joining our conversation, NBC News correspondent Shaq Brewster out in Springfield, Ohio, and lifelong Ohioan and managing editor of WYSO, Southwest Ohio's community-owned radio station. Chris Walter is here with us. Alicia is still here as well. Chris, tell me what it's like there.
Well, it's been pretty hectic the last week. This is a community that has faced a lot of challenges for years and years. And, the Haitian Americans here have been a part of that community for, the last 5 years. And, they've been creating businesses. They've been, working jobs. They've been going to school. They've become a part of the community. And so really right now things are just tense. There's a sense of anxiety in the air. There continue to be bomb threats every day. We're going on 6 or 7 days in a row. Like you said earlier, Governor DeWine and Mayor Rue, resources are stretched thin. The Ohio State Troopers have been called into the city to kind of help keep the schools secure. But, when I was on Tuesday, when I was sitting in the parking lot of one of the schools, there were parents running into the schools to pick up their kids after they heard about a new rumor of a threat on Facebook. So everyone's just really on edge. And there's just a lot of uncertainty about what's going to come next.
Do people feel, do they understand why they're in the middle of the presidential race with 50 days to go? Do they understand that the lie, that people like you, people have done the work to debunk the lie, that nobody that follows the truth believes that anyone's Labrador retriever is at risk? I mean, has it shattered their feeling that they're welcome in this country?
I think it depends on the person. I've been able to speak with a lot of Haitian American folks over the last week, but, I've been reporting on this issue since 2020. It's not even an issue. I've just been reporting on the reality that, Haitian Americans are moving to our area and, kind of what they're dealing with and both the challenges and the successes they've had. So there are some folks that have talked about moving back to Florida. I think there's a real misconception that these people are illegal immigrants or illegal aliens. They're not. The vast majority are transplants, people that lived in Florida or Long Island and decided to move to Springfield, Ohio because of a cheaper cost of living and an opportunity to start their own businesses here. So some folks are talking about moving back to, places where there's a larger Haitian American community. But other folks are talking about, sticking it out and being resilient and they, that this too will pass, because a lot of people have started businesses, they've started families here. So it's, they don't want to leave, right? They care about this community. They care about Springfield.
I mean, what's amazing, Alicia, is that they're neither of those things, right? But that is what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are calling them.
And J.D. Vance knows better. He knows that whether
they're his constituents.
They're his constituents. He knows what temporary protected status is. He understands. But I want to take us to a moment in the debate where Donald Trump was talking about how he was spreading a lie that immigrants are coming and stealing jobs, and says, you know who it's the worst for? Black Americans and Hispanic Americans. He was trying to drive a wedge between those of us who are here with paperwork and those of us who are not. And I think part of what Springfield has illustrated so sadly is that once that lie is out there, it attaches to all of us, right? To be anti-Haitian is to be anti-Black. To be anti-Latinos at the border is to be anti-Latinos at the interior of this country, which they're doubling down on by saying they want to deport 11 million people who are living on the interior of this country. So if he's trying to call to you and say, don't worry, you will be protected, you will be special, you will be different because you have paperwork, they are now saying, that is not true. Temporary protected status, J.D. Vance is still calling you an illegal alien. They see no distinction between people who are here without papers and people who are.
Shaq, I want to play some of your great interviews since you've been on the ground there. Let me do that first.
So it was a very terrifying feeling, but I was also enraged because I know that a lot of it is rooted in lies against the community that has shown me a lot of love.
All this activity with the bombing threats and stuff, I mean, it has a little bit of an impact on the kids. They're kind of scared.
What's going on right now is really chaotic and hectic. Everybody has the right to live in peace, and this is just disrupting our peace. And these people are nice people. They're good people.
Shaq Brewster, you're on the ground there for us. Tell us what you're hearing.
Yeah, Nicole, I think one of those conversations that our team had with parents who were dropping their kids off to elementary school, one of the elementary schools that was evacuated last week because of that hoax threat. One of the parents said he didn't know how to explain a bomb threat to his 6-year-old, and he tried to sanitize it a little bit and tried to still explain. And the 6-year-old started crying to him, wanting to go to school, but also just scared and fearful of going to school. And that's the word I continue to hear in the conversations I've been having with people. Folks are fearful. Folks are scared about the reality. Of course, it's the threats that we've been talking about, the bomb threats that have targeted elementary schools, high schools, campuses. Yesterday, it was a grocery store and a Walmart. But it's also the fear that something else could happen because you continue to hear this rhetoric. You continue to hear these false, these debunked and nasty claims continue to be made. I spoke to the manager of a Creole restaurant in town, and he told me that people are still calling up his restaurant and saying, hey, what's the cat special today? Are you still serving that dog that I'm hearing about? Just hateful calls that he's dealing with. And as he's dealing with that, he's also dealing with members of his community, other immigrants, fearful of their reality, fearing that not only they can face a threat just existing in Springfield, but fearing if Donald Trump is elected and that temporary protected status, that is what is keeping them in a legal status here, a legal immigration status here in Ohio, if that is revoked, what that means for them when they have purchased homes, when they have started businesses. So there's a lot of fear that you're hearing on the ground, and it's fear based on very different things, but all rooted, it seems, from that lie.